Hi, and welcome to the healing journey. My name is Raj, and this will be the second video, the one beyond the introductory video where I sort of explained why I am making this channel and what this channel is about. In that video, I already introduced a bit about why I am feeling bad and how I came to feel this bad, but in this video, I'm gonna unpack those two conditions further and further explicate my affliction and how I came to feel this bad. And the reason for this is twofold. First of all, again, as I mentioned in the first video, if you watch that, this is just me sort of talking into the void as a way of making my feelings clear to myself, as a way of doing some spoken journaling, getting my emotions and thoughts out there. I think this makes me feel better. But the second reason is, of course, in the case that someone sees this and they too suffer from same afflictions as I do, or similar, or they came about in a similar way, then I hope that in the future, as I heal, or as I hopefully heal, then though that person out there or those type of people out there can get some reassurance that they too can heal, given that they had similar conditions to me and I managed to heal. So with that said, how am I doing right now? Well, I am doing pretty bad. I'm doing a lot better than last week. Last week was hell. Last week I just woke up every day at 5 a.m. with panic attacks that lasted for 3 hours, and I had additional panic attacks throughout the day, and it was not fun. It was high anxiety, just really, really feeling like I couldn't exist, couldn't function, felt like I had never felt that bad before, even though I felt super bad before in my life. I've been in like a mental hospital. I felt like last week was honestly perhaps the worst I've ever felt, because I felt that hopeless. And I had a lot of intrusive thoughts about like ending my life and stuff like that. So it was just really awful. Now, this is the 23rd of October. I feel a bit better. I have more hope for my recovery and so on and so forth. But I think I'll make a video particularly relating to this topic. But now, having sort of unpacked how I feel, generally speaking, which is I feel very hopeless. I have super high levels of anxiety and stress still, and I just feel crushed into my very bones. Let me then talk quickly how I ended up here, I guess is the correct term. And I assume that for fine-grained, detailed, and more accurate description of the path which has led me here, I would have to go back all the way to my childhood, because I think like a lot start there, right? And I've always, for all of us, a lot of our traumas and everything is rooted in the past very deeply, even though we might not realize it. I know I certainly didn't realize it, but I've come to realize it more and more, but ain't nobody got time to listen to that. And anyhow, I've definitely been my entire life, I've been a sensitive guy who has struggled a lot with emotions and feelings, my emotions, and being afraid to feel my emotions, and struggle a lot with anxiety and stress and fear. Oh my God, I've struggled so much with fear. Fear has dominated my life, ruled my life. It's been the king of my life for as long as I can remember. Anyhow, with that said, how did I end up here? Well, I think I would say that started about 3 years ago. I or 4 years ago, when I began university, I very quickly met my wife to be. She is older than me. She's 5 years older than me, and she was about to complete her PhD. And we fell in love super quickly. It was love at first sight. We knew we were soulmates from the moment we met, and it was the greatest thing that has ever happened to me by far. I never, before I met her, I had like been with girls, but I never had like a girlfriend. I never thought there was someone out there for me. I thought I would be lonely all of my life. And anyhow, a year later, after meeting, we're married. We get married. We just wanted to do it. We didn't want to not be married any longer, so we got married. And this was the most significant day in my life, I guess, because that's where it really became official that we were going to be together forever. But right after that day, I had like there was no time for reflections or processing really, because very soon after my wife was gonna be getting her PhD defense and finishing off her PhD. So there was a lot of stress and planning about that right away afterwards. And then after her PhD defense, her dissertation was done, I was now about to write my bachelor thesis, only a year into university. So there wasn't really any time for us to process her PhD, getting her PhD completed, because it was just on to the next event, which was me completing my bachelor thesis. And I think during this time, I sort of like learned, or it became ingrained to me, start to get ingrained into me, the concept that you are like moments of reflection for significant things and periods of cooling down is not really a thing. Like it's not like I believe like that fully there yet, nor do I live my life like that, but the idea started to manifest itself in me and become part of how I lived. Because if I didn't have time, if there wasn't time to have a slow down period of happiness and reflection and being in the present moment after I got married, which was the greatest day of my life, how could there be that after anything else? So like that idea, if the thing that I was supposed to do after getting married was to just move on to the next thing, and then the thing after my wife, and the thing to do after my wife completed a huge dream of hers, amazing achievement, getting her PhD, was to move on to the next thing, then the idea that always moving on to the next thing, never being in the moment, is the way to live life. Now, I guess like this idea became like very much fully ingrained while during me writing my bachelor thesis. My dad died, and that was very, very hard for me. I was very young. I mean, I was 22, and I just, for some reason, the day of my dad's funeral, after his funeral, I just went, and I went to like my office space, and then I started working more on my bachelor thesis. And I was telling myself that, okay, but once I finish my bachelor thesis, I will really take time to reflect, and I will really take time to like feel my feelings and be in the present moment. But that just didn't happen. And I guess there are like multiple reasons for why that didn't happen, but some contributing factors were that also towards when finishing my bachelor thesis, sending it away to get graded, my wife's best friend, he had like some weird breakdown, and he decided he didn't want to be friends with her anymore or me anymore, and we were like rather close at this point. and I had like shared a lot with him, and I'm not a sharing person, so that was like very difficult, or like I wasn't a sharing person before doing these types of videos anyway, so that was very difficult. So now there were two difficult things, like, well, there were three significant emotional things happening in my life. It was him leaving me and my wife, like resigning contact with us. It's my dad dying and me finishing my bachelor thesis. And I guess I never felt, given just how bad my wife was feeling and the how good I felt I ought to be feeling about having completed my bachelor thesis and gotten the highest grade, that I didn't have the conditions or like the prerequisites for mourning the loss of my father. And so what did I do instead? I moved on to the next thing. I thought, now it's time to do the next thing, which is to complete my whole bachelor degrees and get really good grades on that, to ensure the fact that I could have like a great and successful future. So I just moved on. I just moved on to the next thing. And I think this was like really, really significant for me in a toxic way, because that's when I think the idea that if something really emotional significant happens to you, be them either good or bad, what you ought to do is to move on to the next thing, because that's like how to live your life. Your life is lived in the future and not in the present, and present emotions are things that ought to be suppressed and pushed down and hidden away, and it can only cause you harm and slow you down. Like that conception of the present became dominant within me. So I moved on to the next thing. And the next thing turned out very, very bad, because, well, this is a way longer story, but there was a guy from my past who has like hurt me very much before, who showed up outside my school class, and he made very threatening remarks to me. And this was just 2 months after my dad had died, and my wife in this time was in the US because she was visiting her sister, because she was also feeling bad and needed some support that I couldn't offer to her because I was feeling very bad. And yeah, that just led me to having this threatening situation just led me to having a complete breakdown, just a complete collapse, and I ended up in the mental hospital. And luckily, that subsequently led me to getting some good. This is during this spring 2018, and this subsequently led me to getting some good therapeutic help, which I'd never got in my life before. Although I'd had interactions with therapy and such help, they had always been horrific, but this time it was actually good. And I started working on getting over what was this then, the dominant fear in my life, which was the fear of him hurting me if I went to the university. And I worked really hard in the spring 2018 to get over that. But of course you can't, because I was feeling so bad, and it's been such a big part in my life, my fear of this person. But I think I managed to get over it to the extent that fall 2018 I could begin doing my master's degree. And so I just began doing it, because that was the next thing. I mean, by all accounts at this point, I should have taken a semester off, or I should have read like some easy university courses to like recoup, feel better, and regather myself. But I didn't, because that's not how I lived my life. That's not how I thought life should be lived. It's about ensuring a safe and successful future. And so I just, although still in therapy, although I'm still high doses of Prozac, I went to school every day, super afraid, perhaps getting a bit less afraid every day, and I did my master's degree. And it was a very hard year from fall 2018 to spring 2019, extremely hard because of all of this. And of course, there was like other big things happening in the background. Like this is the time where I had like a super big fallout with my mom. and my sisters because of me feeling like they didn't treat my relationship to my wife as the sacred institution that it is. So, and they've all, my mom and sister had always been huge parts of my life. So that was obviously super emotionally traumatizing. During this year, me and Rita, we also took in a person to live with us who was very emotionally unstable, and we became close with her, but then she had like an emotional breakdown and we couldn't be close with her anymore. So that was also really, really traumatizing. But none of this I could really be bothered with because I had to go to school. I had to make sure I got like the best grade on my master thesis, and I know it was very hard because they hadn't really given out those grades in a while to any student. But I did it, and I got that grade. And now, surely now, I should be able to rest and relax. I mean, I promised myself that after my master thesis was done, especially if I got the highest grade, I would rest and relax, and I would just, I don't know, try to marinate and be with my emotions about all the things that have happened since like my dad died. But I didn't. I know I didn't. Instead, I decided it was a good idea to try to start up a company with a friend of mine, and the summer was super busy. I just did a bunch of stuff relating to attempts to start up this business and competitive debating and stuff like that. And when the fall came, I decided, I'm gonna apply to a PhD. I've been wanting to do a PhD, wanting to get a PhD. So for some reason, I thought it really, really important that during the fall, I finished all my remaining bachelor points. And instead of spreading those points out over fall 2019 and spring 2020, I wanted to do them all during fall 2019. So I decided to do that. And during this time, my body was really starting to break down. I mean, I gained like tons of weight. I had gained like 28, 25 kilos, 28 kilos at this point. And I started just feeling sick constantly. I started being in constant physical pain. So I started taking a lot of like Dayquil during the day and a lot of pain medication to work through the pain because I couldn't let the pain bother me. I couldn't let the pain stop me. I had a goal somewhere to get to. And then my nose started clogging up, so I started taking nose spray every night to sleep. And then eventually I started having difficulty sleeping. So I started taking NyQuil to make sure I got a good night's sleep because I was worried if I didn't get a good night's sleep, I would get more sick and then I wouldn't be able to get as good grades and finish my courses as efficiently. And so during the fall, that's what I did. I finished my courses, I got the grades I wanted, and I ignored my body. And during the beginning of winter 2020, it was time for me to write my PhD application. So I really started doing that, working very hard on that. And I was telling myself, once I've written my PhD application, I will rest. I will just relax. I will try to be in the present moment. I will learn some relaxing techniques, meditations, yoga, whatever, whatnot. I will get my health back on track. I will stop taking pain medication, sleep medication. I will lose all this weight I've gained. But I didn't do it, of course, once I submitted my PhD application because I was too worried about whether I would get it or not. And then when I got the information in early spring 2020 that I tentatively got one of the PhD positions, I didn't relax. I didn't relax. Why didn't I relax? Because I've been wanting to write a book for a while, like a fiction book. So I said, okay, now it's time for me to write my fiction book, and this will be a relaxing activity. But of course, that was like nonsense. Because first of all, somehow I couldn't allow myself to relax until I had gotten it like dotted in on like paper that I officially had the position. And the relaxing activity of writing a book wasn't at all relaxing. It was just very stressful because I really wanted it to be a great book. So of course I took kept taking pain medication, sick medication, cold medication to prevent that because I didn't want to get sick because I needed to work. And during this time, spring 2020, I started getting like sick, really sick. I started having these like throat infections, and I got them twice. Twice I got a bad throat infection. I had to be on heavy doses of antibiotics. And then the summer came and I officially got the confirmation. And at this point, I'm now again, probably, I'm weighing a lot. I weigh like 130 kilos. And my throat is constantly hurting. My kidneys are hurting a lot. And I'm starting to lose my hair. But surely now I could relax, right? Now I can rest, reflect on everything that happened, learn to be in the present moment, take care of myself, do some self-love, self-healing, self-compassion. But no, for some reason that wasn't the case, because I felt like I just had to really start immediately writing papers for my PhD. Not even papers that were relating to what my dissertation would be about, just external papers, because I thought it would look good to have like more papers during my PhD, because that would ensure my ability to get a good job after having completed my PhD, like a good academic job, which I don't even know if I want. I didn't even know if I wanted it then, but I thought I should like ensure that I have that possibility secured. So then in the summer, I started working on writing 3 papers, and I worked really hard all summer. And of course, I couldn't get sick because that would thwart my progress. And so I just kept taking pain medication, and I kept taking like high doses of nose sprays because I couldn't breathe, and my hair is falling out. And yeah, I just kept pushing. At least I like cleaned up my diet, but I didn't clean up my diet because I was trying to be kind to myself. I just cleaned up my diet because I thought, I can't look like a fat slob. I can't be like a fat slob. Then I won't get like the respect I deserve. And that will lower my chances of forming good relationship in my work. Lowering my chances of forming good relationship at my work will lead to me having less like connections. And me having less connections will decrease the probability of me in the future having the possibility to do a job that I don't even know if I want to do. So I did that, and at this point, around August 2020, perhaps a bit earlier, I couldn't sleep. I was unable to sleep. I just really couldn't sleep at all. So I went to a doctor to get sleep medication. That worked for a while. Then it stopped working. It made me more anxious and less able to sleep. So I really started doing like some nighttime yoga meditation routines. Again, it sounds like self-healing and self-compassion, but it wasn't, because the intent was all wrong. The intent wasn't to like teach myself to sleep because I'm doing bad and I need my sleep. The purpose was to teach myself to sleep so that I can, make sure that I keep working. But I was telling myself, once I begin my PhD, once I officially begin, 1st of September, then I will relax. Of course, that didn't happen. I began, and instead I applied to a conference. I got into a conference, but that meant I had to write up an entire paper during the first month of my PhD, and I did that. I was reading courses, and I was trying really hard to be social because I wanted to be liked. So just so many social commitments during that month also, and I had so many commitments with my other friends, also because I want to make sure that they didn't get like forgotten or they didn't like forget me. That's why I want to make sure that they didn't forget me, that they didn't abandon me. So I tried to organize a lot of social activities with them, and these social activities, I would just feel sick before them. My ears would just hurt so much, so I would take pain medication, and I would take some alcohol to relax, and that was just how September was. And during September, like probably from late August, I had like this constant pain in my ears. It was just constant. I went to the doctor and they said my ears looked fine, but it was like constant. It was always there. And anyhow, then the 27th of September came. The 2 prior days to that, I had like 2 social commitments, and we went to bars, and the bars were a bit loud. And on the 27th of September, I woke up and my ear was like ringing. I was like, huh, this is interesting. I've never had this before, but I just tried to ignore it, and I tried to power through and keep working. And I took some more pain medication to see if that would help my ears stop ringing. And then I tried to power through, and then, yeah, eventually in the, what is it? So like around the 6th of October, I started feeling really, really bad. Like I just started feeling awful. I couldn't, like, I just like in terms of anxiety and stress, I really started feeling all that stress. I mean, to be fair, I hadn't like felt the stress during this last year. I really hadn't, but now I really start to feel it. So I feel the anxiety, start feeling the pain all in my body. And then at the 12th of October, the ringing in my ear was getting like really loud. So of course the doctor had already told me everything was fine. So what did I do? I went online and I Googled ring in the ear, and I found tinnitus, and I read that tinnitus is a permanent condition that will never go away. And the ringing became super loud then, and I read a bunch of horror stories about how it's completely debilitated people's life to have this tinnitus. And then, yeah, that just led to me having a complete collapse. It was like all my repressed anxiety and all my repressed fear and all my repressed emotions just bundled themselves up in this ringing in my ear. So the ring became super loud, like, I don't know, 10 out of 10 loud and painful. And I just had a complete breakdown then, because I realized I can't live my life like this anymore. I realized that I don't even know how I ended up living my life this way, really. And that if I kept living this way, something really bad was going to happen to me. And since then, I really tried hard to have gotten some stress therapy, and I went to see my regular therapist again. And I started reading more about tinnitus and the fact that this type of stress-related tinnitus can be cured and it can disappear. So now, a week, about 10 days later, after the October the 12th, 11 days perhaps, I don't know, 10, 11 days, I am now feeling better. I have gotten out of the initial like panic stage, and luckily I was able to get out of it pretty quickly. I know that can last a real long time for some people, perhaps months even. But I'm very lucky in the fact that I have my wife to support me, and she's the greatest person on earth. But anyhow, I think that's like marks the end of the video. This was just like the story of how I ended up here, and I ended up realizing that I have to do this self-healing journey. And I feel a bit better after having told the story, after having spoken into the void. And my hope is that perhaps someone sees this and they realize that what they're going through, they're not as alone. And my real hope is that as I get better, as I hopefully get better, then such people can get the hope that they too can get better. Because I realized just, yeah, I mean, a week ago, I had no hope of getting better. I really thought my life was over, and that was truly the worst feeling ever, because the idea of the idea of just not being able to live my life with my wife crushed me into the very depths of my soul. And yeah, I guess that's it for next time.